Hello, everybody. This is Plat Chat, episode 58. I'm the special guest this week.
No, it's 57.
57. 57. Matt said 58. Kurt said 57. I trusted Matt. I should never trust Matt. Presented by T-Mobile. Good to be on.
How did we get Budget Bren?
Budget Bren. I'm the improved version of Bren. What do you mean budget?
Bren would get the number right.
That is true. It's the only thing he gets right in these episodes, from what I've watched.
Oh, well, he gets his food order right. That's true.
And you know what? It is presented by Team Ebo, and I'm here to tell you about an offensive ability that is certain to take your Overwatch game to the next level. No, I'm not talking about Earth Shatter or Seismic Slam. I'm talking about T-Mobile, the new meta in wireless. With 5G coverage in all 50 states, T-Mobile has America's largest 5G network. So no matter where you are, you can stream Overwatch League. You can stream your favorite streams on the bus, in the gym, wherever you are. Even better, no other 5G signal goes further to bring you closer to Overwatch League and keep you connected to the game. It's just another way T-Mobile nationwide 5G network is changing the game. Rank up and take your wireless game to the next level with T-Mobile. Visit T-Mobile.com today. Your game will thank you.
Yeah, if you have T-Mobile, there's a good chance you'll hit GM.
That's a good story, I guess.
Before we start the show, how would you guys rate that read?
Jaws? I mean, well, look, I would say the content of the read is like on 100 out of 10.
I agree.
T-Mobile obviously just dominates the wireless game. The way that Jaws read it, though, you know, I think the way he kind of read maybe like a 2 in reading. I would say that was like an
I got asked to do this 20 minutes ago. You sent me that read 5 minutes ago, Matt. So there you go. There's my excuse.
You shouldn't get bonus points for, pulling up your phone and being able to read it. I don't know.
Crazy.
I think there should be bonus points for literacy on this show, because Lord knows sometimes I think you are utterly illiterate, Matt. I'm surprised.
Why me?
When was the last time you read a book? Like, actually a book. When was the last time you read a book?
He's looking around for one.
My room, see where all my books are. I misplaced them all.
A Bratty strategy guide doesn't count as a book, Matt.
They've just disappeared. Honestly, if you have
Matt, can you name a book?
Yeah, Harry Potter.
That's not a book. Harry Potter.
Yeah, there's a
name
book
a specific Harry Potter book.
The specific book.
The specific book. And the Sorcerer's Stone, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, right?
That's fun. Yeah, that's also a film where I think you've literally just written the title, but all right.
No. Let's talk about Overwatch League free agency. Why don't we do that?
Wow, I've never heard Matt transition from a topic so fast.
and I never heard your audio so good. Anyway. Jocelyn, you just start the intro the topic. You're the host. It's free agency. You don't have to read.
There's a lot of free agents. There's a lot of free agents. A ton.
Yes.
And our first team, I think we'll talk about, is Atlanta Reign. What do you? What's happened here? Josh, you've only just woken up.
The hosting is so good.
The hosting is just on.
What's happened here? What's happened here?
You've only just woken up, Josh. I'm sure you're aware of every single free agent move that's just happened.
Yeah, I literally have just woken up and just seen just this mess of free agents. The first thing that jumps out to me, actually, is that Erster is a free agent.
Yeah.
He's had his option declined. And I doubt this means that Atlanta Reign are renegotiating with him. I would imagine after they barely fielded him all year long that Erster is just genuinely a free agent.
They would probably be negotiating something that would, if you were to bring Erster back in a more limited role, right? Like, he wasn't a starter for this team, mostly a player they just kind of plugged in certain scenarios.
Just silly specialist,
Yeah, it does leave them pretty wide open in terms of damage deals, but I think this could be a spot that could be pretty enticing to some other free agents to play alongside Edison. Another thing, too, is they end up keeping Gator and Hawk. We talked about how their play was during the season. Maybe we thought they're a little bit better. They keep Gator and Hawk, and they release, FRD and Popo both enter free agency in different different ways, right? The Popo options probably decline. He was a starter, now more of like a bench player. Probably, if you were to bring him back, kind of renegotiate that. And then FRD just didn't really seem like he had a hero he could play higher at a higher level than Hawk, so it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the Hog was the only thing that FRD was playing really well, but I could see FRD coming back onto this team. They might renegotiate that contract because he has been occasionally fielded for this team, and he got fielded over Daco in 2019 as well.
And I think, sorry,
go on, Matt.
I was just gonna kind of talk about, because their 2021 option is declined, that doesn't necessarily mean they will not go back to the team. A lot of players, that you have a 1+1 type of contract. If they may still want to work together, but they may not want to work together for that other number. They may also just want to work together on a longer term deal, right? So there's a lot of different things that kind of happen with the 2021 options, like being declined. I think you look at the more of like the existing contracts just expiring and stuff like that more as your typical free agents. And I think it's more of a wait and see with the option decline players.
I don't think they're going to go back to 12 though. I think Atlanta Reign of all teams, I just don't see a point where they go back. I mean, maybe you look at the options exercised here for tank and support. Gator, Hawk, tank, and then you have Lyris and Massa also. Do we really think that they're going to extend? Maybe they put one extra tank or one extra support on the lineup. It's probably going to be an extra tank, to be honest. But 12 people again? I don't think so. It seemed like they just needed to stick with a roster and just continue to play it. Atlanta Reign for me has always been a team where it's like, okay, who are we seeing this week? Yay, we're seeing this person. There was too many options they had. Maybe they need to restrict that a little bit.
I think it deserves to be said that you look at this page and like you enter like panic mode. You're just like releasing so many players. But for the Atlanta Reign, like they're actually keeping a pretty solid core around for next year. This is a lot better than like some of the other teams in the league that have released like almost their entire roster, right? Because you look at it and you have a solid
team.
Yeah, they have 6 players.
Yeah. They have a solid tank line, Gator and Hawk. They have a solid back line with Iris and Massa. And they have, damage dealers like Sharp and Edison. And both of those are Overwatch League quality. Even though we didn't see Sharp too much, he is still up there. We saw that in the playoffs. He came in a few times. They need a flex player, which, we thought Erster would be. But, it's not, you don't hit panic mode if you're an Atlanta Reign fan. You're actually quite excited for next year, I think.
Yeah, I mean, this roster may be close to a finished product for next year, to be honest. Add one damage dealer, maybe you add another flex support and a kind of a backup tank. Maybe they even bring FRD back, and that's kind of the roster.
But also you got to say that Atlanta Reign's fans have got to temper their expectations compared to where we came in 2019.
Yes.
Because a lot of people had them in the top 5. That was kind of the overall perception from the community and from experts. But there's no way this is a top 5 team heading into 2021 unless the skill level has decreased quite significantly. Because even though Gator and Hawk are solid, unless they are going to continuously improve over the offseason and really step up to a new level, and then Iris and Master as well, these are all kind of middle of the pack support tank. And okay, the damage line with Edison has the potential to be at that top level. But from what we've seen of them this year, this is like a solid above average team. But it's just above average, these 6 players, I would say.
I mean, that's almost kind of what you want in a sense, like an all-rounder as well, because we don't know the meta into the next season. It's just what feels infinitely far away at this current moment in time. There were going to be a ton of drops, and there's going to be pickups, obviously, later in the off season, but we don't know the meta, so just having like a core is going to be important. I don't see Ray maybe picking up something until a little bit later on. I don't think we're going to see many acquisitions. Like you said, Matt, I kind of agree. I wouldn't say a support. I'd pick up a tank and a DPS potentially to flex over, because those are the more what you want from the tank and DPS. You already have a support. Like a lot of supports can play most of them. Tank and DPS are way more variable in what they can play or what can be played.
Yeah, and Edison was, I mean, he was very good this season. You didn't. Atlanta was so up and down. You didn't really kind of get the great look. I almost want to see Edison play with Dante just because I feel like they're in the same boat where both their teams just kind of underperform, but they're so good that I think together that would be like a really sick duo. But the next team here is interesting as well. Boston Uprising.
Oh boy.
Most of it's running it back. So from what I understand and what I've read, is that the team kind of gave the players the decision, like, hey, do you want to stay and kind of run it back, give it another try? And a lot of these players are high on Laurie, the new coach that they brought in, and they want to run it back. I think they will add heavily to this roster, and these players may not start, but you do see most of them coming back. Where
I mean, for the Boston Uprising, I think when you ask that question, hey, do you want to run it back? I think that it's in the players' best interest to certainly stay within the roster because last year was so disappointing for the team. I mean, if I'm a fan, I'm just surprised that the org even gave them the chance in the first place to come back because of the dreadful results. So like how can you be excited about this team? Like, we got a new coach coming in. Like, there's Punk maybe who's exciting on this roster, but like Myeonbong, but like there's not like. When you compare to some of the other teams in the league that are blowing up their roster and like looking to make improvements, as a Boston Uprising fan, I don't know what to expect for next year when I see this.
I love the article that they wrote. Actually, they wrote an article, the Boston Uprising, and they said they framed it like. We're excited for next year. We're running it back. We're gonna be better. We haven't given up on these guys. That's what the theme of the article was. We're not quitting just because we lost. We're not quitting. It's the comeback. But of course, that makes perfect sense for the players. There were like paragraphs in here where they're like, I know it might seem unbelievable that the players wanted to play again on Boston. It's like, of fucking course these players want to play again on Boston because which other team is going to sign them? If they go into free agency, they are not going to be in the Overwatch League, most likely. I mean, maybe Fusions could get picked up by like London if they were going for a full UK 3-head roster, because he's played with some of those guys before. But I don't really know who would have taken a chance on these guys because when you suck out that badly in the Overwatch League, the history says that most of the time people are going to want to go for contenders talent instead of you.
I would say they probably looked at it and were like, hey, we think Myeongbong's pretty good. Punk got added.
Myeongbong is excellent.
He got added halfway through the year. Punk. I almost view it as they probably feel like this team didn't get a really fair shake at it, considering all of the crazy circumstances. And maybe that they think that they're better than what they actually showed. And now with better coaching, a little bit more stability, they can turn this into something that can compete. I think I mean, look, it makes sense from an organization standpoint, and it makes sense from a player standpoint. It's just a little bit shocking, right? That they kind of
I'm shocked that the org did it though. That's the thing, because I don't know whether the PR of keeping these guys around is literally just worth the money that it costs. Because even if you what were the biggest problems with the Boston Uprising this year? I would say the fact that they had only 6 players basically was a huge problem because they could just never adapt to what the meta was. And then also the low quality of some of their players. Like a lot of their players were in the bottom 5 of their roles in the Overwatch League. And so that's just a tough situation to be in if you're a roster. Like you don't have that much room to expand. So I feel like they've just got to add a bunch of sicko contenders career talent that Laurie scouts and just put 100% faith in that guy that he's going to be able to build something. But they're going to have to pay because they've already paid for 4 or 5 players. So they're going to have to.
Well, they need.
They're going to have to add a lot more.
They need to support on a DPS, right? Depending if checks resign.
It does say that, as such, in the article, it says, as such, not every player status in 2020 roster is clear. Over the next several weeks, the team will discuss options with veterans Jerry and Axiom and work to secure new prospects. So clearly they're going to add Jerry's option exercised, maybe like a trade chip potentially, right? For the team.
Sure.
So I still think there's a lot to come from this roster. I think they just figured, hey, we like these cores. These guys want to stay around. We have a new coach coming in. I know maybe some of these players can be useful. We like having them around, so let's try and see what happens here.
I think you pick up a sick homo DPS to play with Jerry, and then because I always thought in the DPS role at least, if you've got one like hyper carry like Jerry, your tank line, you've only got one. There's not two. I think Kalex had a super rough season. I think the tour, but it was pretty funny. It was pretty good, but like I don't think he had a good season whatsoever. If you pick up another like sick Korean talent and put him on DPS with Jerry, Fusions and Punk are going to look way better because they're going to get pressured a whole lot less. And then you have Myungbong as well, and you pick up a good support player, whether that's Western or Korean, and you kind of go from there. I'm pretty excited about the Boston Uprising, depending on who they pick up, of course. And then you have the additional tank, maybe, and then you have an additional DPS. And I think then the Boston Uprising, they're going to look pretty good. Depending on who they pick up, of course, they can...
Yeah. We have seen before in the Overwatch League where players that we think are not that great do truly get transformed by a good coach and like a bunch of new good players around them. But you have to spend the money to get good players right now. You can't go for the classic Boston thing this year of just picking up unknown talents or people that others don't actually think are that good. Like you have to spend the cash to get good players, probably from Contenders Korea here, and just trust in Laurie that he can mold them. Boston can't afford to have another bad year. They have just been shit for so long.
Chengdu. We love to talk about Chengdu. Right now, their roster is kind of open, to be honest. A-Ting and Bacon Jack both retire. Molly, they pick up his option.
Molly's really good.
Yeah, they pick up the option on leave, which makes sense.
Yeah, he's good.
And then everybody else's option falls a little bit later, coming in November.
Can you answer that question for me, Matt? Why are some of these guys team can exercise option until November, and why are some of them team have already exercised the option?
Maybe it is something where the team honestly, I don't really know how the contracts are structured. I would assume though that potentially all of the options expire sometime in November, and some people have decided, some people are undecided.
Oh, I see. Right. That makes sense.
That kind of would make sense to me. It wouldn't make sense to have half of the league be one date, half of the league be another.
Yeah,
it's probably some people have decided like, hey, we're going to pick that up. Some people have decided maybe they're trying to renegotiate those options.
I looked up the key dates for the roster construction rules for 2021, and I hope this is accurate. It was tweeted out by John Spector on October 12th, so that was a bit over a week ago. And it says October 16 is the deadline by which teams must exercise any options to extend existing contracts which were initially executed in 2020. Okay. So if you signed a 1-year contract or like a 6-month contract with a player and then had an option to extend, you had to like extend that by October 16. November 13, deadline by which teams must exercise any team option to extend existing contracts which were initially executed in 2019. So if you signed a contract last year with an option, November 13 is your deadline.
Gotcha. So I guess that makes sense because some of the players that you're seeing that their options already been exercised, like Leave and Molly, were additions recently, right? They were not additions the year before. So Chengdu, I think this is a roster you still don't really know a ton about until we see what happens with a lot of those other options. But I think it's a good sign, though, that they keep Leave and Molly. Both of those players were mainstays in the roster for a lot of the season.
Look, man, I don't care. Look, I don't care. I don't care about your aspirations as a team. I don't care, like, if you want to make, like, top 5, you want to win a championship. I don't care. Just re-sign all the players and remain Chengdu. Because the league is not the same without Chengdu Hunters. I just want you to bring back Among, play the Wrecking Ball when the meta comes around, have Jinmu mess around on DPS, just do weird shit, quite honestly.
What will we do to trigger people in next season if we don't have the Chengdu zone? I don't really know. We're not that creative to come up with something else, so we need it to exist. Yeah.
A-Ting has retired, so they don't have like another main tank to be able to sub alongside Eamon.
Well,
but to be honest, Eamon looked a lot better anyway whenever he was playing. He's managed to diversify Zero Pool enough. Bacon Jack's
I still
retired as
think
well,
they
but
need
I
to
felt
pick up
like
tanks.
I didn't feel like Bacon Jack was really providing that much to this team. He had some moments on the Tracer and the Widow, but not really. Not really that big. I think whether or not this team gets re-signed comes down to what the upcoming talent looks like in China. And I have not been following Contenders China, so I really have no idea.
Yeah, I'm sure they would want to pluck from that. I don't think any of us are really tapped into Contenders and China and kind of what's going on with that.
I'm so tapped in.
Something I am tapped into though is the Dallas Fuel, because this is an easy team to follow because they only have one player.
Doha, baby.
Incredibly easy to follow the Dallas Fuel. They have Doha and they have some roster spots. Yeah. So if you like the city of Dallas, which I do, and you like Doha, you have a chance. Maybe I have a chance for all I know. This needed to happen. I even think like I know some people were kind of like, well, what about Gamsu? What about Note and the supports? Like, I think you did see good stuff from them during the season. I think though
Gamsu's
this
gone
is
back to league.
Yeah, Gamsu's going back to league. This is a team though, and an organization that expects wins. I don't think you could have kept some of those players and realistically kind of went to free agents potentially and said this is a spot you can win, right? This team just won the Call of Duty League. They have a fantastic Call of Duty team. They're really kind of pushing in that. Their Valorant team looks promising. This is the only kind of blemish on the Dallas Esports NV kind of franchise that they have, right? This is the only one that's really faltering. So you keep Doha. You liked what you saw from him throughout the season. You get him with a new coach, and you go out and you just try and pitch players.
Who's the new coach, though? That's the thing.
I don't think they've announced that yet.
Exactly. That's the thing to me, is that clearly they have
Could
just
be Bren. He's not here on the episode.
clean. Yeah, maybe it's Bren. But they've done exactly what we were asking for them to do the last 2 years. Like this move was necessary, but it feels so painful now because it should have been done last year or even the year before.
It didn't have to go like this, right?
No, it definitely didn't have to go like this.
It didn't have to kind of, because they did like a half rebuild a little bit, right? But then you still had players on the roster. You were like,
I mean, they still had like Harry Hook, AKM,
gonna play. Yeah, you were kind of like
sitting on a throne of gold, just waiting to kind of leave. You know, playing whatever the hell they want. I mean, they were going to leave eventually. I think no one is surprised to see a lot of these players being dropped.
4 of their players have gone to different games.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that tells you
sitting
about
on the
Dallas
bag,
experience.
Bro. Well, no, they just weren't invested in Overwatch. And I think though, like to where we said like, oh well, what went wrong with Decay? Like, just sitting around watching all your teammates just like, you know, give attention to other games and whatnot, where you're trying to be the best in this game, probably is triggering, probably is tiring. So
100%.
I think that just kind of adds another wrinkle into the what went wrong with Dallas and Decay. Would actually be hilarious if you re-sign with Dallas, but I highly doubt that would happen. But
to be fair, Doha is the only one left. And Decay could be like, well, he's good friends with Doha.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see who the new coach is. I'm assuming it isn't just going to be the guy's name is Dong, isn't it? The guy that they had as the temporary head coach, I think.
Yes,
I don't think coach. I don't think it's going to be him. I think they're going to make a sign for some big agent. I thought they might even go for Junkbuck, but he ended up going over to the Houston Outlaws. Yeah. So that to me was like peak what Dallas could have done, is just sign Junkbuck, give him the reins to the entire thing, and just give him a bunch of money. Because Lord knows Dallas Fuel have been spending money in the previous years. So just let them spend money again for one more year, and you'll actually get results this time because you cleaned house.
I mean, we'll get to it later, but KDG is available from Philadelphia Fusion now. You know, they announced that he's not being re-signed for next year. I don't know what the wording was and like what the contract status was, but like if he's available,
it was like we really like him, but he's not coming back.
I do want to say on this roster as well, though, I think some of these players have potential. If not in other games, I think Crimso could be a pretty good addition in, you know, some Overwatch League teams. I think Crimso was really impressive on the Ana specifically. When we had that Genji meta, like around the Summer Showdown, like, keep in mind, Dallas played Paris in the first game, in the first knockout game, and Crimso had like a ton of impact with the sleep darts because he managed to shut down Spark quite well.
Like at the start of the season, or like when he first started playing, I was like, he needs to, you know, step it up just a little bit. But it's just been consistent improvement.
It has,
match after match after match after match after match. Crimso is nearing to the point where like he needs to be picked up. Like I actually think he needs to be picked up. Actually,
Yeah, you can see him ending up on a roster for sure.
His honor play is just incredible.
Also, Onigod, I would say the exact same thing. To the
Get
point
him on
where
ping, dude. He's been on ping this entire time as well, and he's still with Widowmaker too. A ping on Widowmaker feels terrible. Like terrible. Tracer feels good on DPS. He needs to get picked up. He needs to be brought to the region he is playing in and have 10 to 20 ping, and he will be exceptional.
I'd love to see like London make a play for a
I was gonna say.
And then even Crimzo, like somebody like Toronto makes a ton of sense, right? You know,
that makes a lot of sense.
It's something like that makes a lot of sense. This next team is one that's a little confusing. The Florida Mayhem. So BQB is a free agent. I thought BQB had a pretty good year.
Yeah.
Saya player obviously is now a free agent. He is also referred to as Spider on T1 Valorant.
Spider.
Gargoyle is a free agent. That his contract is expiring.
But all of these contracts are expiring, but that doesn't mean they're not going to re-sign with the team.
Exactly.
They're just getting to the end of their contract.
Right.
I think the Florida Mayhem probably re-sign a bunch of these guys.
This is a run it back.
The run it back.
But not so. They've already announced though that Chris and Karayan aren't running it back, and Byron.
No, those guys are not running it back. Yeah,
they already put tweets out about this shit, right?
Yep. Yeah. So you expect them. I mean, that really kind of just puts the onus on BQB, Fate, and Gargoyle, and you expect those players to want to remain in Florida. You expect those players, the team, to want to retain those players. And then you go get a main support, right? There's a bunch of them that are now free agents. You can probably actually get an upgrade over Chris or Byram, and you can come back an even stronger team. Maybe you even add a player that's like Saya player who you feel like could be more impactful in the roster too.
Yeah, I was just scrolling through the Florida Mayhem's Twitter there to make 100% sure that it was Chris, Byron, and Karayan that were let go. And my God, that organization milks the shit out of J3 and Samito. They have got their money's worth with those streamer deals. It's just every other thing has got J3 and Samito's face on it. It's so good.
Hey, bro, you paying them, you make them work.
Exactly. Anyway, yeah, I think that this is going to be a good team. I think that BQB has clearly showcased that he's actually a top-level player. His Ash gameplay throughout this year, it was a breakout season. Well, maybe breakout is the wrong word because he had already been
I think it's breakout.
Contender's career before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? He was a good pickup when he joined the Overwatch League, but then he never really did anything in the Overwatch League. And then this year he looked really good on the McCree, on the Ash, on the Widow.
Contenders now. That are main supports. I just had a little look, and Unique is still, he's 18 now. Maybe see him moving up too. He played for Element Mystic and Team Diamond, I believe now. So, hey, there's a lot of main supports in
Josh,
Korea.
Your boys.
My boys.
Guangzhou Charge.
No, wait.
Boys.
I mean, I want to talk more about Florida. I think this is super interesting. I mean, okay, we have a lot of teams to go through, so sorry. But,
well, I mean, no, you just kind of like stared at the camera like you were bored, so I figured you.
No, I was waiting for people to finish their points, but you're moving along like you got to fucking piss like 30 minutes into the episode.
You're the one who's gotta. You're the one who's gotta go.
Go on, Johnny. No, actually, I don't have to.
Okay, then we're good then.
I just wanted to say that I think this is like if they can get Gargoyle back and like they re-sign like BQB or whoever, like I think Florida Mayhem could potentially build like a top 3 team here going into next year. Like I really do.
I think that's a risky statement there. If they bring back the same players they had when they were a top 5 team, they could potentially beat out 2 of the teams who are going to lose a ton of players and be top 3.
Some teams you look at and you're like, oh, they missed out this year. This was their opportunity to win stuff this year. I think Florida Mayhem, like they built a really incredible foundation this year that they could potentially build even more upon, and I think that'd be so sick. So
run it back.
If they pick up some like damage player from like O2 Blast or something to like round out the roster, like they could be so sick.
Yeah.
Pelican.
Okay, that was all. That was all.
That was it.
Pelican
all right,
was nasty good.
Guangzhou, Josh's homies, they got a lot of spots open. Krong coming back. Eileen coming back. Everybody else flip a coin. Bren's favorite player in the league, Crystal, had his option declined. And then one of the ones well, I mean, his contract just expires, right? Like, I'm sure they're gonna try and make a play for Shu again.
They got to make a play for
guy-
Happy as well.
So good.
They have to make a play
Shu
for Happy too.
Shu Happy, I think make ton of sense to bring back. I think it Nero as well, but it just kind of depends on what Nero wants. Like, does he want to come back to the States and play for a team here? Does he want to stay in Korea?
He was tweeting when he was in Korea and stuff. He was tweeting like he was missing everything back in the States. So I can imagine maybe he wants to go back. I don't know, but I feel like Charge are just going to go full Korean. I don't see Neptuno coming back either. Does anybody know what is happening to Neptuno? Has he moved on to another game? Is he going coaching or anything like that?
No, I don't think so. I've seen him tweeting,
agent, right?
and he basically said, from what I can tell from his tweets, that because he was stuck in visa hell all year this year, he can understand why the team released him, because he wasn't actually able to be there with them. But he said he still had a big impact, like helping the team out and leading them at the beginning and fixing certain protocols for them and that kind of stuff. And I think he wants to run it back with another team.
And we know he is good. Like Neptuno is good, even though we didn't see him a ton because of like the visa issues or whatever. Like his Lucio and Mercy is up there, and like his shot calling and like mind for the game. I think Neptuno's a good pickup for some teams.
He's a good leader too. Can be
veteran experience. Yeah.
Happy is going to be a tough. Happy and Shu, especially, I think they're going to be they're going to be hot. Free agents. I think a lot of teams are going to be battling to try and have them on the team.
I mean, Nero is also a huge free agent for any other team, right? Because it seems unlikely that they're going to. Are they going to re-sign him? I don't know, but it seems like considering we're probably still going to be stuck in the COVID situation when the league begins, at least for a little bit, just like judging by the trajectory of this thing. It seems like you would want to go for talent that doesn't have any potential visa issues.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you bank on it expiring. I don't know. It's a tough situation for these league these teams.
I do feel for.
Do you think that if you're one of these players that has the option to perhaps go back to the Guangzhou Charge, so like if you're Happy, if you're Shu, is it in your best career interest to re-sign with the Guangzhou Charge? Do you think they have that level of potential as a franchise? Or do you think you perhaps look at bigger, more well-known franchises like, I don't know, like New York, Seoul Dynasty? Like, what do you think is in the best interest of these free agent players from Guangzhou?
I think you go for these guys personally, because they already won like one of the titles this year within APAC. And if you can add to that consistency level, and if they weren't having visa issues with Nero and arguably Neptuno as well for the year, then maybe they would have done even better. I think this is a good roster, like a really good roster. They finished 5th overall in the season.
And you don't have to go through growing pains again.
It's
they finished higher than New York and Seoul in the regular season, didn't they?
Yeah.
True.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. This is a team that I think you would you wouldn't be upset if they brought most of it back and just kind of tinkered with maybe a position or two. Hangzhou's the next team up. Otto and Adora, they've had their options declined. Architect and Godsby currently under their existing contracts, so you still have that duo. Gushui still there. They keep QOQ, so they add him during the season. They keep him for 21. They let go Rhea. The Sassen we still don't know yet, but you assume if they do, it's more of like a restructuring. It's like a backup player. And then they keep IDK and they keep Coldest and Mika. But I feel like that's more of because I believe both those players are Chinese, correct?
Yes.
Coldest and Mika, so they kind of keep them probably to appease some of the Chinese fan base.
I think they will integrate them as well, though.
They see them at times, though.
Players. Yeah, they are really good players. The problem is always the communication stuff. But I think they've made some good changes here in terms of allowing the contracts to expire of players that didn't really perform. Like guys like Ado, Adora, and Bebe were clearly the weaker parts of their team, I think. And then Rhea as well, they're investing in the newer talent of QOQ, which I can't disagree with. I mean, these would potentially be good free agents for other teams around the league as well, Rhea and Bebe particularly. Maybe Ado. but I don't really know that.
I feel like Otto has had such a tough go with his career in general in the Overwatch League. I mean,
actually, the toughest career of any player.
That guy, yeah, he is taking the longest road. I want to see that guy play and do well. He's just been stuck in some poor places, but
yeah. That being said, like I could see like a team signing him.
Yeah,
like, I don't know why. Yeah. I still could see a team like signing him for 2021.
He always seems like a happy-go-lucky guy. He's a pretty decent player. Why not bring him in? I think this is a team that Hangzhou that could add a ton and be a contender next year. I think we said that a lot this year. The off-tank position, they never really got sorted. Kyoku comes in during the middle of the year, and they never really kind of integrated him and Architect well, I would say. But Godsby looked really good early on. We know what Gushui can do. IDK is like an aggressive support. We know he's had some really strong performances in the Overwatch League. I feel like this team is like two players away from and I think some coaching.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
From being a really powerhouse type team.
Because they got rid of their coach in the middle of the year. What was
they're with I believe Pagion's there
Mask.
now.
Yeah, Mask, right? Mask was their coach.
I believe
yeah,
they have
he was the head coach. He left at the end of July, and then Paijon took over the head coach duties after joining after Vancouver stuff went down. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you on the coaching aspect, but I also agree with you on this, like the future of this roster. Like I think they have some brilliant core pieces now re-signed for 2021, and there are a few additions away, I think, from rounding out and becoming like a legit contender in APAC, because it was a rough year for Hangzhou in the APAC region, right? Like they had their moments sometimes, but then they also had like really low lows. But I think, you know, they could become really competitive if they re-sign like 2 or 3 more players to this roster and round it out.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was just reading something. So I filmed the download today, and are you guys? This has absolutely zero to do with Overwatch free agency, but I think it's actually fascinating. Do you guys know that little? It wasn't little, but the startup Quibi. It was like Netflix of your phone, and it was shows that was just like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So they're after burning through $1.7 billion in 198 days. They're just shutting it down. They were spending $8.8 million a day.
What? What?
That's ridiculous.
Somebody give Plat Chat just one day of their. Give us a half a day of Quibi. I mean, give us 15 minutes of Quibi. I mean, come on now. No, it's just wild. It's just people who don't understand the younger people trying to make stuff they think younger people want, which
Dude, 15
obviously doesn't
minutes
have
of Quibi, that's still like 125 grand.
Hey, yeah. Well, the Houston Outlaws don't have 15 minutes of Quibi.
Nope.
They have nobody.
Wait, was that the transition? Was that why you brought it up?
No, that was. They're kind of cleaning house. Were you expected this to happen though? Cool Matt comes in as a GM. They've had a largely similar roster with largely similar results.
Oh my lord!
This is them and the Dallas Fuel. The state of Texas goes hand in hand. This should have happened a little bit earlier. I do give them props. They tried last year, right? They brought in Blase, they brought in Hydration, Meko, Jexe, Repel. They
Has
brought
it really
in.
happened though? There's still a lot of exercise here.
They brought in Harsha.
What'd
you say?
Hydration's still under existing contract.
Hydration's still there.
Yeah.
They've already said goodbye to Muma. They've already announced it.
Yeah.
Yes. And then a few other players, I think like Linkser, Blase have already kind of
announced Linkser as well, right?
Yeah,
so.
but all those players have said they're looking for teams.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're really looking at them. If you're them, you bring back Hydration. Obviously, you try and bring back Dante. And then I work from there.
No, Meko is his
they declined his option.
Oh wow.
So I work from there. This could be a there are some other free agents a little bit later. I could see this. Okay, so I'm gonna say this could kind of become Team USA light. I say obviously some different players from Team USA in the past, but with Cool Matt, Harsha, Junkbuck, potentially Dante, Hydration.
Get Nero.
You look at some players like I mean, you look at Nero. As we go deep down, Super Moth.
Hang on a second. Hang on.
you're smoking. I mean, Nero maybe, but Super and Moth are not joining Houston, bro.
You can bring back the Team USA vibes. Bring it back.
I mean, I don't
Dude,
even know.
Super to Houston will be some LeBron to Lakers shit.
Right,
Maybe not.
Why not?
Maybe not. Maybe let's move on.
Why not?
Sideshow. Sideshow, go ahead.
Why couldn't?
I don't think it's happening, right? Because Andy Miller has got deep pockets. We know that for a fact from before. And the reason that they're free agents at the moment is just because their existing contracts have been expiring. I don't think that NRG would want to get rid of the crucial components of their winningest roster.
Yeah.
I don't think that makes sense. Like unless Super and Moth had their egos have just expanded to the point where they're asking for $1 million, then maybe they'll get shut out into free agency.
You get it from Quibi.
You don't get greedy if you're shocked now. Just like keep doing what you're doing. Like make the most out of this. It's hard to build a championship roster. They have it. Don't get greedy and like try to cut small.
Outlaws are going to want to chase Dante though. Dante is so good. Like he's almost got pick of the litter when it comes to teams, especially teams that need to be at DPS. Like, dear Lord, he is an absolute monster. I'm not sure about Linkser, maybe. Dante is going to be one of the hottest DPS I think on the market right now.
I would.
Without
I would actively chase Dante if I was them, and I would try and re-sign Meko. But I think that's going to be you tough, decline his. Well, I think you decline his option because it was probably for a large amount of money because they had to sign him from New York. So he's probably on a large amount of money. And because the team didn't have any success this year, I think you decline his option and then renegotiate with him for a lower amount. That's what I would. I think this is one of those situations where just because it says 2021 option declined doesn't necessarily mean he couldn't go back to Houston. I think it logically makes sense that the Houston organization would decline this contract, even if they did want to re-sign him for next year. I think Dante and Meko were clearly the two best parts of this roster, though. And you could find a replacement for Meko. You could find a replacement for Dante. You could just give Junkbuck free reign over who he picks up, and he'll probably create a good roster for you. But those two players were so good that you should at least put in a bid, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. I hope Jexa goes somewhere good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like Jexa.
London.
Oh boy.
A lot of players free agent. But there's some that are still there where we expect these players to potentially be on the move or kind of be bench or supplementary pieces to a larger rebuild. So although is a free agent, Shui is a free agent. Those are under a mutual agreement. I guess both sides just babble as well. Let go. Same with Cleston, Jian, J-Mac, Hiley, Krillin. All of those players, just a mutual agreement for them to be free agents. And then there's some players still under contract. So Bernard, you have Sanguinar, Fuse, and Glister.
Yes.
I mean, I literally just think they've kept the players that they can sell.
Yes, pretty much.
That seems like what they've done here.
They just picked up Nuki as well. And it really does feel like if they wanted to, they could go full EU/3-head, just full EU and UK kind of team. Because Boombox has also been released as well. So if they did want to start building that brand of like a UK team/EU, Boombox would be the perfect pick up and then sell everybody else. What do you say?
Nookie made a video saying that is exactly what they're doing.
Yeah,
I did not see that. Well, there you go.
I didn't see this either.
So I mean selling
because you've been playing so many other games, you don't even realize what's going on.
Glister is sick. Like, they are 100% going to try and sell him for big bucks.
Oh, yeah.
And I can imagine he's going to... Well, I don't think they'll keep him on the team. He's going to go to a Korean team for sure. Like, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to... Well, if Nuki said it's going to be, it's going to be. I mean, I'm very excited to see how London are going to rebuild this whole roster. A lot of these players that have been released are like old Gen GS players and the Korea Cup players that hadn't had a crazy amount of even just tier 2 experience. So I can imagine some of them we might not even see again, although they have performed exceptionally well considering their status before the league, before they join the league. So there's potential for these players to actually go someplace that isn't.
Shui might go somewhere, maybe.
Yeah, Shui maybe. I really like how Nuki
look all right on the May.
I really like how Nuki's positioned this team as well. It's not something where she's taken the GM job and just said, yeah, we're going to be champions like straight away. She kind of laid out like, hey, this is the team we want to build.
Yeah.
We may not be like top 5 next year, but we want to be competitive and we want to build for the future after that.
Nuki's
where
very smart.
I think that level of transparency is going to win over fans that have been fans of London and then fans who aren't even of London, because I think some fans are like, you can get behind a team if they kind of set the realistic expectations. Like, hey, we're trying to build for the future. This should be a fun team for you to be a fan of, but don't expect us to win the league.
Also, the feeder team, the feeder team in British Hurricane will work now. Because before,
it'll actually be functional.
It'll actually be functional. That pipeline is finally been built. This Mario-esque tube has been built, so they'll come out the other end and pop up in London Spitfire. Because before, when they had the London squad before British Hurricane, it was like, okay, that's London, that's cool. You know, they won the championship or whatever. And then they were like, oh, we have Hurricane now. Oh, by the way, guess what? Korean team again. It was like, oh, so you've kind of like blocked the gap because those players are never going to be able to transition and filter into that team. And now with Nuki saying this, Hurricane players, they're going to have a chance to go up through the contender system and make it all the way to London Spitfire. I think it's a crazy good move from Nuki.
She also clarified that they will not be signing Sideshow or Bren.
Thank God for that. Thank God.
Players.
Anyone as players. As players.
So
Yes, as players. Yep.
Don't sign him.
Could still be a coach. I think I hope that they are a bit more creative than just signing like the British Hurricane guys, though. I realize that there are like really good contenders team, and some of those guys definitely deserve to be an owl. But now this year as well, now is the prime opportunity to build like a good foundation of players who initially were on other teams. Like London Spitfire, they could go for Nero, they could go for Dante, and like they could go for those type of like quality players and build a foundation, and then build around that with the British Hurricane lineup that they have, and like foster great contenders talent as well. So like I think London Spitfire are in a really good position to like build long term, even like for the next 2-3 years.
When your aim is not to literally win, but just to build like a really cool well-performing European team, there's a lot of people that are going to be free agents and from contenders where you can build that. And I think people are going to draw the comparison to Paris Eternal from last year, where they had a ton of European players and then they finished like 3 and 4 in every stage, and they were just kind of mediocre. And you found it difficult to really cheer for them, because even though they were all European, they were just getting they never showed you flashes of brilliance. But I think also that was in the GOATs meta, where if you are consistently mediocre, you just aren't that impressive.
Yes.
Like there's just no flashes of brilliance. Like what Cloudy's going to hit an Earth Shatter, and apart from that, you're just going to slowly lose maps in GOATs. So GOATs was a meta that you could only really shine if you were brilliant. Whereas every other meta, you can see individual performance way more than team performance. So I think that you pick up like Oni God and Boombox,
Neptuno,
a bunch of different people.
All the EU players, baby. Yeah. Just get them in, and it's gonna make Hurricane 2 a lot more succulent, if you will. Because teams in Europe, players in Europe, are going to want to really push and try and get on Hurricane, because they know that's a track into the league and onto London Spitfire as well. So they're going to look a lot more enticing. That's a better word.
Enticing. Succulent.
Yep.
Okay, I think we're done here.
Yeah, all right.
Gladiators.
Yeah, sure, whatever the hell Josh just said. The Gladiators.
Gladiators. I'm very excited for this.
I like a lot of the moves they made.
Yes, absolutely.
You kept Birdring, you kept Mir, you kept Kevser. You have that DPS trio, which I think they started to hit more of a stride towards the end of the year. All of the tanks are gone outside of Space. Let kind of Space help pick which tank he wants to play with. And then Big Goose and Shaz, free agents. I think you have a solid core to work with here.
We actually made a head-to-head, me and Matt, earlier in the year, and we discussed the Los Angeles Gladiators. I was a bit off with the argument I brought at that point, but I did say in the video that I think it was in the best interest of OG to perhaps go towards a Korean team and then build with another main tank playing alongside Space. And so I agree with you. I really like what they got going here. They re-signed some of their best performing players. Also, maybe it was about time that Big Goose and Chaz kind of moved on.
They're just going to give
like
Super
solid,
Moth
consistent.
a bag.
But I like what they got going here, and I'm excited. If they can sign a really good main tank to play alongside Space, they could build some nasty synergy in the tank line, and that could really help this team too.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that in the initials, the beginnings of the Overwatch League, right, was always in your top 4, top 5. They kind of fell out this year. I think they just missed them. I think you can see the decision, like with the roster and what they were trying to do. I think they just missed the mark a little bit on the OG Space tank line. I think you definitely kind of nailed it, Johnny, where I feel like OG just never really got comfortable playing with this team. I think also their supports, although like fan favorites and really good in year 1 and 2, I think they just kind of felt a little bit overmatched this season at times.
It's also Gladiators were playing like band-aid fixes too, in putting mirror on support and then putting on tank and then support again, then back to DPS, then support, then tank. Like they just kept swapping him in and out, and it was so strange to see a player like Mirror, who is extraordinarily good as a player all around. But like, obviously, his DPS is his best role. And then they were taking Big Gushaz and they were putting him on these different roles. And it was such a band-aid fix that it never seemed to work out. Like, Mirror's Brig, it wasn't that great. His Zarya is fantastic because obviously he did play that in GOATS. It is extremely good. But then you're also having Space because of this double off-tank meta. I think just keep Mirror on the DPS. They've got a good DPS core. Stop putting these random band-aid fixes on things and moving Mirror around because it's never really going to work. Maybe it works against lower power level teams, but never against teams that you really need to win against. Just put him on that, pick up a solid support line so you don't need to keep applying band-aid fixes, and this team is going to be just fantastic, I think. Because Space is a top-tier off-tank player. Like you said, Johnny, put a sicko main tank in, you're done. Easy clap.
It depends who they pick up, because you thought that OG had that potential to be a top main tank. And I mean, that clearly didn't work out. So you not only need now a good main tank to be able to play alongside Space, but you need a very solid backline as well. To be able to make this team into a top team again. I don't know, man. They kind of lost all their coordination this year that made them a top 5 team in 2018 and 2019. This year was a mess. Like right from the beginning, they were playing sloppy. They're all over the place. There wasn't that level of coordination. The biggest thing though for me is I don't really care whether Gladiators are good or not. I'm just sad that Big Goose and Shaz are gone. Especially Big Goose, because he's said that he's going to retire. They're such pillars of the scene. Like these guys have been around since forever. They joined like Giganti to play with the full Finnish team in Contenders and won that season of Contenders. It was like the first thing that we had in the Blizzard Arena. It was it's sick, and these guys have been such a pleasure to watch as well, especially Big Goose in my opinion. And I still think that Big Goose could have competed at the top level, and so it's very, very sad that he's decided to retire. And he's never going to be with Shaz again.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of what we've seen from some players, whether it's retiring, is just kind of like a change in guard. Like I think we've seen some of these players for so long, and like Overwatch, where it's given so many other younger players a chance to kind of mature and hit these highs that, you know, now they're starting to like peak a little bit higher than some of these players we've seen in the past, which I still think, like you mentioned, Josh, I still think Shaz and Big Goose can play at the Overwatch League level. I think the way it's trending though is that teams are going to give younger, just kind of more mechanically maybe like skilled players a chance.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, I do think that Shaz was being overtaken, but I think the Big Goose could still play at the top level.
Yeah, I think that was the crucial point when I made my statement too, that like maybe it was about time. I think it comes down to the Gladiators' like aspirations of remaining like a top tier team, where I think that Big Goose and Shaz, like even though they're still Overwatch League quality, if you want to be a top 5 team, I think maybe you'd look towards like younger, more potential in your flex and main support. So, you know, If a team came around and was like, yeah, we'd pick up Big Goose and Chaz, like I think we'd all be excited about it. So
it's almost like in sports they kind of refer to like making sure everybody's on the same timeline on your team. Like I feel like Big Goose and Chaz, their career timeline are on a different path than younger players like a Space or a Mirror or Kevster as well, where those players you think can be like pillars for like the next few years of the team. Where like you look at somebody like Big Goose and Chaz, at least in my opinion, you're like, yeah, well, you can probably run it back with that duo for another year or two, but like what happens after that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know for when they're planning, but
yeah.
I think this year was a bit of a like rebuilding kind of year for Gladiators already, because you could see it in the teamwork as well. Like as Josh mentioned earlier, like they kind of lost that consistency in their teamwork, and I think that was part of why they underperformed this year, coming in with a lot of hype. So maybe they could build on this year and like regain some of that coming into next year. But now you're getting rid of your backline too, and it's like you still have to establish that kind of synergy now again. You're not starting from the ground up, but like it's you're losing some of that synergy that you built on this year.
Yeah.
So who knows?
It is time for the Los Angeles Valiant, which we've known for a bit now. So they the option is declined from apply. They have time for KSF because that's an older contract. They keep KSP, they keep Shax, they keep Dreamer. Gig is a free agent. His expires. They decline McGravy's option.
That's the mental one.
And then they keep both supports. I think McGravy's the biggest shock. Apply's been on this team for a while now and really hasn't gotten a chance.
Yeah.
He kind of did with the old the older squad, but not really even like a fair shot there. But,
I mean, he played for the Mayhem, didn't he? Before the Valiant.
Yes, the Mayhem. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Played. He was on the roster.
I don't know, man.
They did play for a little bit.
This was part of the reason that I thought it was that this team might not be top tier when they picked up this roster at the beginning of the year, because they had Apply and KSF and Shax. And I just didn't believe in that kind of component. And then they added KSP and he fucking pounded all year long. So I honestly, I don't really care whether Apply stays or goes or KSF. Honestly, I think they could pick up another flex DPS player to play alongside KSP and Shax, but those two are the ones you must keep.
Absolutely have to. Widowmaker is going to be meta at some point. It doesn't matter if you like it or not. Like, and KSP's the
any hit
one.
scan.
Yeah. Or like Ash or whatever. Like KSP's the one you need to keep. He is a nutcase.
I do wonder potentially if they're able to figure something out and bring McGravy back in some type of capability. I would like to see McGravy return here. I think the Valiant fans really like him. I think he's a good player. Maybe they don't feel he's the right fit or the starter, but I still feel like he didn't play bad this year. I wouldn't say that at all.
No, he was quite middling, right? Like I think he's a very smart player, and I think he's great within the team. I think he understands a lot about how the game should be played, but when he actually gets into the server, I feel like he's one of those players that is maybe limited by his own, like in the moment decision making. He knows what he should do, but he's really smart. But then when he gets into the game, he can't quite play at the same level as the other absolute elite level off tanks. But he was still good. He was still, I would say, an average off tank this year, and at times looked above average.
He's still an incredible asset, I think. Like outside of the gameplay, obviously, like he brings this personality and the hype and like the energy we saw in the post-game interviews and like all that stuff. Like it was really entertaining to follow Valiant this year, and I think part of that was like McGravy being such a big presence on the team. So you can say what you want about the in-game performances or whatever. I think a lot of teams would look at McGravy and be like, hey, that's a guy, like we want him on the roster,
Yeah, and it's crazy as well how well McGravy's personality fit with this team. Like he's like in the same way that Dogman was like this yappy dog that is that's always gonna let you know that his team's undervalued and that kind of stuff. Like McGravy is always gonna be talking himself up and his team up, but it really fit with this team because they were heavily underrated coming into the season and then overperformed. So it's like his his kind of bold personality really meshed with the identity of this team as well, to give you a guy that was absolutely the face of the team and became the face of the league, winning the Dennis Havelka Award as well this year. And they've dropped him for an increase in performance, I suppose. I don't get it. I don't get it, man. I would have kept him even to be on the bench. I would have literally kept him just to be on the bench.
Because we have some teams who are just struggling to find an identity, like a face of a team, right? Like you had that here. Like you had whether as a player, a face in Overwatch, just an ambassador of the game, you had somebody who just makes an impact at that level that there's not many people across the league who do make that impact. And to just kind of have him go into free agency now as another team will probably give him a shot, whether it's a player, content creator, somebody who can kind of play sparingly, I think.
Sure.
Even if he wanted to be a coach. Genuinely, if he wanted to be a coach on a team, I think he has that kind of read of the game where he finds something that he believes is like broken and he'll work a strat around it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's pretty similar to like how the old Houston players got to the top of the NA region when, back in the day, where they just spam one thing that they believe is broken right now.
I believe you could have found a use for him on this organization in general, right? Especially because they had somebody who was like a face of the league in Custa, and then obviously now Custa is just twiddling his thumbs with us now. But to kind of have that type of player back-to-back years and then lose them both to back years is you don't know how you rebuild that trust with the fan base, right? Because is the fan base now going to think the next star player we have is just going to be gone the year after, right? After kind of falling in love with them. And
yeah, I mean, it's clear though that they are valuing star players within the server rather than star personalities, because they're not. I mean, if they had let KSP go, or if they had let Lastro go, or even Shax, then now you're worried, right? Because you're like, okay, we believe in your scouting, but not to this kind of level where you would let somebody like that disappear, especially since you probably signed them on fairly low contracts to begin with. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see who they pick up when it comes to that off-tank position, because that's really all they need here. Oh, I sent a tweet over actually to Kurt. It's in our Discord, because I thought it was so weird, like incredibly strange.
Yeah, I thought
that
it was
the
so weird.
Valiant social media manager is writing the "Thank you, apply Gig and McGravy" thing. What the hell is that about? If you go over to the like letter that they wrote from them, this is written by the Valiant social media manager. Now, I'm not saying this is a knock on social media managers, right? They are really closely ingrained with the team, but that is not your responsibility. That's the responsibility of some kind of like manager or coach, someone that actually picked them up, someone that has the decision to remove them must write this letter.
Yeah.
Like, look at the start of the fucking third paragraph. As someone with about as much control over the roster as every other fan, I know the decision couldn't have come easily. What? That's nonsense.
Yeah, but you don't like. So this is the type of thing.
No,
where
don't defend this, Matt. Don't.
I'll defend the portion of they needed to say something. Maybe the people who kind of had the decision to make this would not have put it so elegantly, and like the decision just could have been like, oh well, we don't think these players are already good, so we're just gonna let them go. Like
well, then at that point, you get someone to ghostwrite it for you, and the guy approves it, and then they put their name at the end of it. That's how it works in a professional organization.
That's kind of what this seems like it is, except they just signed it as the social media manager instead
because they haven't ghostwritten it as if it's from a coach. They've literally said in the paragraph,
that's true,
as someone who has no control over the roster.
Yeah, it is kind of odd.
I'm writing this. It's batshit. Like, how did this get through?
Yeah,
maybe they tried to.
It's so disrespectful. Genuinely, I think it's really disrespectful.
Maybe they tried to take the angle of like, we're gonna approach this as like another fan of the team who's gonna be upset too, but that also kind of puts the team in an odd light.
No, because then you knock on the staff of the team.
Yeah, it's a
So,
little
yeah,
odd.
screw the staff, like couldn't come easily, they deserve to be resigned.
I
Like,
can't say I've seen that before.
I've never seen that
no.
before. I don't understand what was happening. Like, maybe it was just a last minute thing, and the social media
It
manager
could
was
have
the only
been,
one
yeah.
that could ping on Slack. But I mean, that's lack of professionalism.
Again,
there.
not a knock on the actual social media manager of the Valiant.
No.
Because, our social media managers in general, we just think that, it should have been the job of general manager or head coach to provide.
That's really weird.
New York Excelsior. The Excelsior have some things going on. Haksal retires. That's extremely sad. Just from being a fan of Overwatch in general, seeing his play over the last few years has just been tremendous. He's one of the players that you kind of you talk to people from other games, and you go on different podcasts. A few players they know. Haksal is one of them.
He is Genji. Like,
yeah,
if you think of Genji,
just like a
Haksal.
legendary player. Yeah.
Yes.
And then a lot of this, so they've announced some stuff today. We can go through the free agents. So Haksal says free agent, that's retiring. Nene is a free agent. Who Are You is a free agent. They were both added this year. Bianca and Hotba, they are free agents. Hotba just never really seemed to kind of gel with what was going on here in New York. And then everybody else is Mondu's under contract. And that's really it. Everybody else has the long-term options because they're players that have been in the league for a while now.
Yeah,
I could totally see this roster changing way more than it currently is. Like,
yeah, this smells to me like the management wanted more from the roster, and like it's a disagreement between. It's like it looks to me on paper like a negotiation period because all of these old players they haven't made their decision about them yet. At least as far as I'm aware, they haven't announced anything, right? They haven't tweeted anything.
No.
And so, considering that there's always been conversations for the last 2 years, 100%, but also a little bit at the end of 2018, where we're like, okay, these guys are considered and their reputation is of elite level players, but they haven't given the results. And this year, they've slipped the most out of any of the years. This, to me, smells like negotiation period where the players are still like, no, we're top level. And the org's like, actually, we want more of you. Like, if we're paying the big bucks for a team that's supposed to be getting championship wins, we want championship wins. I agree with you, Matt. I can smell change in the waters here.
Does anyone think it's weird that Hotba and Nene are free agents on mutual agreement? Because that tells me some kind of like they didn't agree with the direction of the franchise or something. It's just weird that they would just mutually agree to leave.
Well, I mean, I think it's just maybe Nene wasn't super happy with his role in the team. Maybe there was a situation where he wanted to come back, but it was a large amount of money for whatever reason. You didn't really kind of feel that it was warranted. But I agree with Josh and kind of what I originally had thought when I saw this. This is a team that was put together with championship aspirations. And to be like the regular season champs in year one, not really do it in the playoffs. Year two, you were clear cut third or fourth. This year, you're what, the number 3 team at best in Asia, maybe number 4. Where would you have ranked them over the course of the whole season, including the NA teams, 6, 7?
I mean, where did we rank them? We did a power rankings of it, and I think it was somewhere around 5th or 6th.
I thought it was 5th or 6th.
No, it kind of been 5th actually. It must have been more 6th or 7th. Yeah.
Wait,
I think you could easily just sum it up in this. When you're kind of putting together this roster,
we had them at 6th. Yeah.
This roster on paper and for probably how much these players command in the open market, you're expecting to contend, right? You're expecting to be up in the spot where Philly is, at least in the Final Four, at least in the dance, right? And for them to consistently show that they can't do it in the playoffs, you have to make some type of moves here, right? You need a major shakeup, or you need kind of players are going to come down to earth a little bit in terms of where we think this team can place. It's because I think a lot of these players, even in the free agency market, will demand interest if they do go that route. And I also think if New York brings them back, they'll be kind of about where they were. It's just whether the team is happy with that in terms of the organization, and if the players are okay with that, and just if they're able to make it work. I actually think they're in one of the weirder spots out of a lot of the teams, because you can totally make an argument that they should just fully blow it up and just rebuild around like Jonak and some younger players and whatnot. Or you could totally make an argument that says, hey, Hotba didn't work out. No, Haksal and the DPS never really figured it out. We still have Animo, Jonak, and Mono. Let's rebuild half the team and see how far we can go. I think you can go multiple ways with this. It's just it'll be interesting how it shakes out.
New York, to me, they're like an aging bicycle. Where in 2018, it was like very smooth. It's like, modern, creme de la creme, or like whatever it is, and like runs really smoothly, and like you're having a blast on your new bike, whatever. Then in 2019, it's still a really good bike. It's still a really good bike. You've used it for a bit now, but it's still like a pretty modern bike, whatever. And now we get to like 2020, and it's like it's still like a really good bike, but like for some reason, from like using the bicycle or whatever, like the frame has like started leaning in on the back tire a little bit. And so like when you're going uphill, it's a little bit harder to like push yourself like uphill. And it's like, just like you gotta push a bit like with your step just to like get going the same way you used to, right?
Yeah,
I think that New York never really figured out like what the problem was. Like it's like, it doesn't feel the same, it's been used for a bit at this point, and it's like it's slowing down, but can't figure out why that really is. They always had the potential, but for some reason in like elimination games, it's like the strategy just wasn't there, or like someone just did one weird play that like throw everyone off guard. It's just, it's.
I kind of like this stupid bike analogy.
It is a great analogy.
I was going to say, it's like, it's almost as if, you paid for this really nice bike 2 years ago and it was the best bike you can possibly get. And then all of these other bikes came out. But then, the third year, somebody's trying to sell you that same original bike for that same amount of money. And it's like, well, I can go get like, there's newer bikes out that are better. Why am I paying that same price for this bike? And when you've had this bike for a while, why am I buying the same bike again? It was good 2 years ago, but is it the same quality of bike as it is now? There's new different things with bikes, seats, chains, tires, handlebars. There's a lot of things you could change on the bike.
True.
Also, previous year of off season is like, it's like they had the opportunity to take it to the mechanic, but they had already finished third in the playoffs. So it's like you roll the bike into the mechanic and you're like, no, I swear to God, it has like this clicking noise. And the mechanic rides around on it and it's like, no, it's perfectly fine. What's wrong with it? There's nothing wrong with this. You're like, oh, fuck, it's just an intermittent problem. I can't get it to work whenever I bring it into the mechanic. But this year, you've brought it into the mechanic and it is clicking. It's starting, it's starting to wear down. So changes, they maybe are happening.
All
the
right.
next team. Yeah, I guess I'm the host, and Charles just sits there, just blankly stares at the camera. Paris Eternal. They're the next.
I'm sorry, Matt. I'm sorry. Okay, well, like, okay, I'm a guest on your damn show. Okay, like, I'm sorry if I'm not being the host straight up.
Was frozen for a bit. I thought you had just been frozen.
Shut up, Matt.
The Paris Eternal. They didn't need to make many changes, and nor should they really. You still have the options available on Nico, Soon, Ben Best, because they've been around for a bit. You bring back FD God. Fielder is a free agent, so his contract expires, which is a little bit interesting.
Oh, they should re-sign him immediately. Yeah, he was so good.
But everything else is just kind of like expected, right? I mean, there's nothing really incredibly surprising.
No Smite getting declined is unexpected to me.
Okay. You really?
Yeah, because No Smite is okay. He's not the greatest main tank in the world, but he's a crucial element of what makes the Paris Eternal tick. Because Ben Best Winston just hasn't been up to scratch.
Yeah, so why wouldn't you just get a better?
It got better, but it wasn't No Smite.
It is totally
super strange. Do they want to re-sign Ben Best and then keep XC Sparkle? Okay.
Huh? Ben Best is French, and he's had a good Reinhardt this year and a great Orisa, and so who are they going to pick up? on the main tank position who is better than both Ben Best and No Smite. I'm not, and I mean, out of the free agents that we've already gone through, I mean, you're looking at taking a punt on Karayan or Pogpo, OG. I mean, I don't think that. I know that the coaching staff could really do magic with anybody that they picked up, but this No Smite drop is not. It's not questionable like it's a bad move, but it's a telling move. It shows you that they are going to need to add in another tank, or they're going to work super heavily on Ben Best Winston in the offseason, or they are just going to drop both of them and try and pick up a much better replacement, which I think they would struggle.
I want to see if they're going to go...
Pick up Mag. I dare you, pick up Mag.
Mag is very good.
Mag is so good.
I'm curious if they're going to stick with this kind of half European thing, because we're keeping Spark and Alexi. Like, why would you not keep them? They're ridiculous. But FD God remaining under contract as well. It's like, are they going to go the European and Korean route, or are they just going to go? They could even pull like a San Francisco Shock, where they have the only Westerner on the roster some of the time is just Moth, and then they have 4 Koreans. Are they going to do that with FD God? Just put in with the 5 Koreans and then just say go, or are they going to try the half French / Europe route again?
I think.
It's going to be, it's dependent on Ben Best being picked up again. As soon as, if he gets picked up, they're going half European 100%. They're going to pick up 1 European player to play DPS. If he's not there, I think they're going to go full Korean straight up, pick up another Korean DPS, Korean tank, and then you have FD God and another Korean support.
Yeah, I think the crucial point is when we discuss like mixed rosters and stuff like that, is that generally we have the belief that it's like very limiting. You know, it's hard to like get communication across or like to sync up on like a personal level or like teammate kind of level. With Paris Eternal, I think they really demonstrated that kind of works for them this year. You know, there were many times in the season where they were like, yeah, we got like the similar mindset, you know, both of us really want to win and we got on really well. The Koreans who were like, oh, we don't want to go home during the break because we support our French members not being able to go back to Europe, right? And it's like you could show, like they clearly show that there's a lot of like mutual understanding and like friendship among the Korean and French players. So I really do think that they've set themselves up nicely here, because they can cater to like the French fan base with like brilliant French players that are really good, but then also has Korean players in the roster who are incredible at the game, but also are able to like cooperate and work with those French players in a way that mixed rosters sometimes usually don't work.
I think the only player they don't pick back up is maybe Nico. You keep Soon in, Ben Best in too, and then Fielder pick back up, and it's another go again team.
I think they would pick up Nico again, though. I think that Nico had his position within the team. He had certain roles that he played and that were important for them. Okay. They also... I think that you're undervaluing how much French players on the Paris Eternal means to their French fans.
True.
Yes.
I think if you start dropping French players, the French fans will, go nuts. Will revolt, to use a historical term. I think that this team has already proven that they can get the results. They looked great at various portions of this season. They were the 4th best team, and they looked like it. They won a title. Everything is working for them. There's no, as far as we can tell, there's no drama within the team about them being mixed. They gel well together. It's just all hunky dory. So I think they go again.
Well, you need to re-sign Fielder to this team.
Yes.
I don't know where I was going with that thought, but you need to re-sign Fielder for this team.
Yeah. It would be good to see them keep Fielder, especially if they can kind of get him actually here for like the visa purposes and just the fact that he can probably sleep at normal times. Philadelphia Fusion. This is a team that we had a lot of questions about going into free agency. Chip's a free agent. EQO free agent. Ivy's contract expires. Same with Fury. And then Boombox. They've said goodbye to EQO, Chipsa, and Boombox on social. That would lead you to believe they are still very much in the hunt, trying to figure out how to bring back Fury, how to bring back Ivy. I expect this team, honestly, with the decision they made with KDG, to try and bring back most of it with a different coaching approach, which is a lot like what we said after the grand final show, right? We were kind of questioning the coaching decisions and what was going on during that time in terms of prep. It seemed like they had the formula for regular season. They just did not have the formula for the playoffs.
I think you have to exercise the option of Sado here for sure. He's so valuable to this team. I do still want to say it again that, like I said this after the grand finals too on like Plat Chat or something, that like this was supposed to be like the championship year for Philadelphia Fusion. That's why you brought in so many of these big name players, right? Like when they initially brought over Fury to this team alongside Carpe, we were like, holy shit, you know, like this is an incredible roster. Brought in Funny Astro, Alarm got promoted. Like this was supposed to be the year for the Philadelphia Fusion. So I think if you have the potential here to like resign or negotiate your position a little bit, I do think some of these players are like wary of like, hey, can we like really do it on this team, or should I utilize my incredible skill set to perhaps like check in on other teams?
I don't think so. I view this as if they are able to bring everybody back, or mostly everybody back, they're in a fantastic position, because with a lot of the teams we've gone through, you know, there is going to be some big talent on a lot of other teams that were really impactful players for other teams go via the free agency or trade market, that if they're able to bring most of their team back, they still have a core strong enough to compete at the end, right? Where I think if you know, let's say, you know, Shanghai loses some players, or players want out to go actually start somewhere else, Seoul as well, San Francisco players maybe kind of just kind of tired of being on the bench, you want to play. You know, when some of that talent gets distributed to all these other teams and Philly can hold on to a lot of these players, I still think they have the talent top to bottom to get it done. It's just whether they have that formula in place. This is what they were talking about with KDG. I thought it was kind of odd. They're like, yeah, he was so good with us, and then he's gone.
Wait, what is the exact wording here?
Yeah.
What does he say? Oh, well, now our faces are in front of
this year, Fusion completed our best regular season ever with 24-2 record. We never could have done it without the leadership of KDG. Thank you so much for your hard work and drive to win. Best of luck in the future. I think I saw a few other players in the organization like tweet out like best coach and like nobody works harder. So it's kind of weird to see like all of that love, but then he lets go. Something had to. I think this is a team that was clearly designed. It's a clean team that was designed to win everything this year.
I wonder what's happening there with KDG, because that might be a case of the management kind of choosing to prioritize something and being like, okay, KDG didn't get it done this year. Like we had aspirations of winning and we didn't. But sometimes good coaches still get bad reads, you know? Like at the end of the year, KDG might have just had a bad read. I think there were definitely times throughout the season where that reared its head like over and over. And I do think the utilization of Carpe needs to change if this team is to actually win a championship. Yeah. But I wonder whether, if it was the organization's choice to remove KDG, I wonder whether you wouldn't have just had more. If he genuinely is an incredible coach, and you know that from working with him, then he's going to learn from these losses. And instead, if you plug in another guy, they're not going to learn. They're not going to have already failed and learned from those failures. I think there can be value to having, if you really do believe from working with KDG that he's a good coach, which we can't really know because we haven't worked with him, then I could see the value in running it back with him. And so I'm interested to know whose decision this was.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't really necessarily pin a lot of the issues on KDG in the first place. Obviously, we don't have the level of insight to understand, like, maybe he did something wrong, or like, probably not. But like, looking at the results, I don't think you can like blame KDG for like anything. I agreed with most of his coaching choices too. Like, you mentioned like the way he used Carpe and stuff, but like, we need to keep in mind that they did use Hisu and Ivy for the, you know, like the later stages of the season. And I think that was a really good decision, and he wasn't afraid to bench Carpe. They did bring him back in for the playoffs. You know, I honestly think, and this kind of, you know, sounds so silly, but I think Philly honestly just got like pretty much unlucky with the playoff meta. Like, you need luck in the playoffs as well to be lucky with metas and like have it work your way. I think that the meta in the playoffs just wasn't Philadelphia Fusion's best, and they were surrounded by the best teams in the world. Yeah, and I think they honestly got a bit unlucky, and I don't think you can blame that on KDG alone.
I think though that you absolutely do need luck, and it's something that people don't value enough, especially when you consider like the run of the Seoul Dynasty, or you know, and their run like in the first year as well, and even to some extent Philly's run in the first year. Yeah, but to me also, whenever Philly go up against the best teams in the world, I frequently feel like their play style breaks down a little bit. Like they seem to me to be a team where their play style dunks on lower level teams, or at least consistently does. This year, this Philadelphia Fusion roster, their play style, they just outpower the lower level teams, but they don't have the same level of team coordination that Shock and Shanghai do. They just don't. You can see it when you watch them. The ways that the teams are making plays with each other and the way that they move around the map and this kind of stuff is, generally speaking, superior from Shock and Shanghai. And I think that's like the crucial element that's going to take them to a championship next year is working on that part of their game. And I don't know whether that is like player play styles that need to shift and it's more on the players to learn that, or if it's more on the coach, and whoever comes in to coach this team, I think they're going to have a bit of a hard task, like taking these.
We'll find out next year, right? I mean, we'll find out with how they go with the coaching and whatnot. The San Francisco Shock. Let's talk about this team.
It's an easy one.
Ants, Striker, Tayo, their options are exercised. Rascal is a free agent.
Yep.
That his existing contract has been expired.
Sad.
Choyobin, Smurf, they are under their existing contract. They are back. Super, free agent. His contract expires. Twilight has had his option picked up. And then Moth and Violet are both free agents.
They just re-sign them. I don't see a world where they just don't go again.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no way.
Unless somebody comes in and offers like starting positions to like a Super and a Rascal, and they want to start and play.
But on what team? That's the thing.
Yeah.
There's no way that Super wants to start on a team that sucks. Like, there's absolutely no way. Like, the guy's brand, and like when you hear him talk about, did you hear him talk in an interview about how he approached the playoffs, where he was like, I have got to sit down and I've got to want this more than Gesture does. And then he was like, oh shit, what if Gesture's thinking like that? I've got to want it twice as much as Gesture does, just in case he's trying to want it more than me. Like, the guy is a fucking... Okay, maybe he might not have started as this in his player career or whatever, but at the moment, right now, the guy is a fucking competitor that is here to win. And I don't think he's just going to take more money for next year. I think he either is satisfied with what he did this year, or if he was satisfied, he would give up and go stream. He wouldn't go and join a fucking Dallas or a Houston and ride out the middle of the pack.
If Shock don't extend an offer to him, and Outlaws do, he'll stream.
Could you? What about the Gladiators? No meme. Like, could you see him in space with like Birdring and a new support core be interesting?
If the support core consists of Violet and Moth, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Violet, Moth, Super, Space, and then DPS.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't see them not just extending. We know the San Francisco Shock. You said it a little bit before. Have deep pockets. They're gonna fork out whatever they want, I think, and they're just gonna go again. They know they can win 2022 or 2021, or maybe 2022 as well. I don't know, but
they might not even have to outbid these other teams though as well, because like if let's say that Dallas are a team that have blown up their roster right now, and they're also a team historically that have paid a lot. So I'm theorizing that Dallas is going to try and build a super team next year.
Sure.
So if they were the kind of roster to come along, or the kind of team to come along and say to Super Moth, oh, we'll pay you buckets of money. If the Shock says, we'll pay you a little less buckets of money, we'll pay you buckets -1 amount of money. But you are probably going to win another championship if you stay with us. If you go over to Dallas, you don't know who the rest of their roster is. You don't know which kind of free agents they're going to pick up. And you might end up in a position like fucking Mecco, where you're on the Houston Outlaws and you're struggling for air.
I think it's way different, though. I think because these players have already won championships, they're not in the position of Mecco, where Mecco, now you kind of look at it and it's like, oh, well, couldn't get it done in the playoffs in New York, bombed out with Houston. Like, how good, is he? Like,
no, he's a sick talent.
Yeah, I agree, but I think there's a lot of people out there who are dumb. But I think you've seen Super and Moth play at the highest level and make an impact on the highest level. Where
that's a good meme.
This is an excellent tweet. This is absolutely zero to do with free agency, but it's incredible. See, I don't know if that would be the case, Josh, because I think what would happen, and you see kind of how the Shock have treated some of their coaches who have gotten offers to go be like main coaches somewhere else. they've always kind of encouraged that and said like, hey, if that's kind of what's out there, make it happen.
That's because you can't justify paying an assistant coach, head coach money.
Head coach, but
they're trying to push these guys away so that they can get the bag in other places.
But
because you can't, as an organization, pay 5 people head coach.
But can you pay like tier 1 tank style money to somebody who plays like half the games? I don't know.
I mean, I don't even like. I think if I was in Super's position, I think he's so like brand cognizant as well that I think that he cannot grow his brand more than he currently does at San Francisco Shock, in my opinion. And like he has a brilliant like career trajectory already with like, he's on a top tier team now. And I think that, it's just a matter of time. Like he could quit and become like a full-time streamer whenever he wanted, right? And I don't think he gains anything from going to like Dallas Fuel. Like maybe he gets paid like what, 50, 100K more? Like I don't even know. Like I'm just
that would be your
numbers out. But even then, are you not like growing your brand more by continuing to play on the San Francisco Shock?
Yeah, I agree.
Right. I mean, that would be kind of your argument for the Shock, right? If he got like some big time offer to start somewhere, it'd be like, don't you enjoy the ability to stream more? And you can only play when we know and we know that you can make like the biggest impact, right? He's not forced to play in metas where he may not look the best. Like they have a great support staff around. They win. There's a lot there that you can't really put like a financial amount on. I think it'll be interesting. The one player I think both the Super and Moth will be back. I think Violet as well. I do wonder about Rascal. I wonder what because I feel like Rascal is a player who a lot of other teams would love to have on the roster. And with Ons, Tayo, and Striker, and I think specifically with just how well Striker picked up other heroes and with how Ons fit in this year, I don't know what they would feel, how inclined they would feel to match or just kind of up it.
Depends how Tayo does, really. I mean,
they won't know that until
exactly.
He's on
exactly.
the team. I mean,
but I think Rascal, maybe he goes to somewhere like Spark. I could definitely see him going to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm definitely in the same boat where I'm not sure whether Rascal would actually stay on the team or not. There's no question about it. The tank and supports are going.
Yeah,
I totally think they should. Because even though we've seen Ants play like the Sombra and the May and that kind of stuff, just having the guy who's going to be the specialist for that kind of stuff, where he plays the Pharah, plays the Genji, plays the May, plays the whatever else you want. He's so crucial. And it frees up Ants and Striker to practice these other roles. For me, Tayo is just a player you can't rely on at all. Like if you come into next year and you're relying on him to be the Pharah Genji May player, that's bonkers in my opinion, especially considering he was a hit scan and was like a Genji back in like 2017 or something. That is a bit of hubris at that point. Unless Shock have some tier 2 people that they are actively looking to acquire and replace their current roster with, I think all of these guys get re-signed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Seoul Dynasty. So our runner-ups this season. Fitz and Illicit, they still have their team options until November 13th, so don't exactly know what's going on there. You expect Fitz to probably be back.
Yeah, he's good.
Prophet has had his option picked up. Same with Gesture. That makes total sense after acquiring them last year. You wouldn't just kind of, and then making the finals, right? You wouldn't just let them walk. Marvel and Michelle, same thing with their options. They declined the option on Bren's favorite player, Tuyu. Bedosian's a free agent. Didn't really seem to have the same type of impact Gesture and Prophet had. Creative they keep, and then both of the supports. Toby had his option declined. Slime's option, I guess, contract just expired in general.
How weird.
That's weird that Toby and Bedosian.
I think they try and bring back Slime.
Yeah, Slime definitely. It's so strange that Toby and Bedosian got declined. Actually, so strange. Maybe they were just asking for like.
Are you surprised about Bedosian?
I'm not that surprised about Bedosian personally, because Bedosian played quite a bit of the season, and he's like has previously been a shot caller for the team. Yeah. Creative had a breakout year, and so he really feels like someone that you can start to rely on. Okay, he didn't play as much of the Zen compared to Bedosian, but
he only played like Ghana,
Yeah, but if you give him some more time, I think the Creative's definitely somebody that you can integrate into that spot with large amounts of success. To me, it's like Tuyu's option got declined when he was only signed halfway through the season, and they're having massive issues with like figuring the fuck out of this tank line. Like, what on earth are Seoul doing with this tank line all season long? Running double main tanks all year.
This could
they
be.
Also got rid of their general manager. Keep in mind, so they might be going for a new direction next year. We don't know.
How ridiculous would it be if they bring back Marvel? I don't think Marvel's your answer at off tank. What if they made a play for Fury? Bring all the boys back.
Bring Fury back.
You tried bringing Bedosian back, didn't work. Bring Fury back. I actually think this will be a spot where a lot of players are going to want to go because with the COVID situation, everything going on, to be able to, if you're a Korean player, go back to Korea and play for Seoul, I think will be a huge opportunity for a lot of players. One that I think a lot of players will definitely think of, especially players who are now, whether it's like free agents or trying to figure out things with teams that they have in NA. If you're like a Fury, right? You see, or even like somebody like Sato, and you don't things work out with Philly, or a player from another team.
Sato, just add another main tank, shall we? Gesture Marvel and Sato. What are you guys smoking?
Sato play off tank. Sato play off tank.
I'm so like, it's gonna sound dumb, especially given his playoff performances. But I'm kind of over like the gesture experience by now. It's like it's so unreliable.
Oh yeah, it's unreliable, but it's fun.
Yeah. What do you mean? You don't like being 8-8 and then just miraculously coming out of nowhere?
I think, though, you keep Marvel on this team and you actually try and rotate Gesture and Marvel properly at the main tank position.
Yes.
And so then you avoid the, like, Gesture experience while still being able to sub him in when he is genuinely playing like a god. And I think that's, like, how you get the best out of Gesture. And I mean, I think there's better off-tank free agents this year than there maybe have ever been. You could pick up Rhea. You could pick up Meko. You could try and pick up Bernard, who the London Spitfire are going to want to trade. You could try and pick up. You could try and pick up Bianca or Hotba. Like there are talents that you can trial and genuinely add to this team, and they would fix your issue.
Here's a sick name. What if Gargoyle wasn't able to figure things out with the Mayhem? Right? You look at a player like Gargoyle would fit in super well with
or if he just wants
Seoul.
to like
go
some
back
of these
to Korea.
players, they might want to go back to Korea. Who knows?
Bernard, Glister, and exercise the option on Fitz.
That would be ridiculous, wouldn't it?
That would be insane.
Keep Fitz
Profit and Glister with Marvel and Gesture playing alongside
Slime and Creative.
I think that they should aim to re-sign Slime. I mean, presumably if they're declining the option on Toby, that does mean that they are not interested. That to me is a little strange because they did run with Toby for so much of the year and Toby actually performed pretty well. Slime, it seems, I think Slime's better than Toby, but they just never used him all year long and they never integrated into the team. I don't know why.
Maybe they felt it was too late to be able to integrate him.
Wasn't it halfway through the year?
Had to be
I thought. I don't
know.
so.
Toby's never been the shot caller for them. Oh yeah, he has, of course. What am I talking about?
Yeah.
Toby has. Yeah.
Let's go on to the Dragoons. The Dragoons looked good this year. I mean, they're still trying to get their way to 500 in the overall season standings, considering they had an 0-40 year. But maybe next year they'll kind of headed in the right direction. Ding DM, they're free agents. They expire. Dia, he'll be a free agent. His existing contract expires. They keep the MVP Fleta. They keep Lip. They keep Fearless. Gregory, the contract expires. Stan 1 and Void are under contract. They pick up Izayaki. They pick up Lee Jae-gon again. And then Luffy's a free agent.
Bring back the boys.
This is a roster where they keep everybody who played a ton, and then a lot of the pieces they never really worked their way in. They say goodbye to.
It was pretty good if you're a Dragons fan, knowing that all these good, insane players are still under contract.
Yeah,
it was very good.
Yeah, they've got to make a play to re-sign DM. DM's a freak, and I know that he didn't get much play this season, and he had a losing record, but that wasn't his fault. He's an absolute beast.
He showed in the playoffs.
Yeah. He absolutely.
Every reason why he should be re-signed.
Yeah, Ding is a bit of a question for me. I mean, Ding, you could have found value out of him, but all of his hero pool, apart from Farah, is covered by other players on the team. And even Farah, you have Fleder to be able to play that.
Ooh.
I mean, it's not like Ding levels, but it's pretty close.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether you really get value out of him on the roster.
I mean, this is going to be another strong roster for this next season.
Oh, yeah.
I think they probably could even make some additions, right? Shanghai's always been a team who can.
They could definitely add another support,
out.
at least. Like,
Yeah,
just have 3. Maybe re-sign Luffy, but...
They can go out in the market and spend. I think there's a lot of good flex supports as well. I mean, I think just overall, I think the takeaway from all of this is there's a lot of quality players heading into free agency.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, you still look at this roster and you look at Seoul, they keep everybody intact. You know, depending on what goes on with a team like New York, right? You could see one of these teams go from like a super team to like, 12 God mode style players, right? Just top to bottom.
Dragons,
just
Jernak.
acquiring talent. I feel like there's really not much to say about the Dragons. Really good
They're
season.
still going to be good.
Yeah, they're still going to be good. I think we got a lot to say about this next team, though.
What?
And Johnny's
all on the same
Johnny's
day, baby.
favorite team,
Boom.
the Toronto Defiant, and they have retained nobody.
Yep.
Everybody gone.
Yep.
Agilities, Logics, Mangachu, Surefor, Zik, Beast, Nevix, Numlocked, Carib, Cruz, and Roki, all free agents. I think this is obviously Toronto just needing to figure out what direction they want to go in. I have no idea who's going to go to this team. I don't know what they're going to do in terms of coaching, whether they made a coaching change or GM change or just kind of directionally.
This is so weird.
You know, there are some players here, though, that I think are going to help out a lot of other teams. Like, you know, if Nuki wants to start a UK team, right? Like having the opportunity to bring in somebody like Cruz in the main support role, I think could be sick. We were talking about some of the teams in APAC. You know, what if Seoul Dynasty can add a player like Kariv? You know, Kariv can play a lot of different things in the flex support role. Could be a huge addition. Some of the DPS players I think can still find a homes because I think they have really, high skill in terms of like niche, right? Like an agility is always going to be really strong in like your Doomfist, Pharah, Genji type compositions. Logics, I feel like, is another player a lot like Otto, who's never really gotten a fair shot in the league. I think for me, I just want to know from the organization like where this is heading. You know, like how London came out with Nuki and like, hey, this is the direction, this is what we want to do, this is where we're going, this is where we expect to kind of put ourselves in. We don't have any of that here. We just have a clean slate.
Yeah, the only thing the owner tweeted out was we want to win. So obviously they're going to go for like a championship kind of roster, but how? No clue.
I mean, also such a weird decision. Year one for them was 2019, but the first year that the Toronto Defiant is in the league, they just are the most forgotten team of that entire year. They just had nothing notable about them. They weren't so terrible that you took notice of them, and they absolutely weren't good enough for you to take notice of them. They started with Koreans, they tried to bring in some European players, and all of it was a failure. It was a horrible season for them and for their franchise because you didn't even generate fans. You like actively lost fans, I feel. And then this year they've gone for a very fan forward approach. Big marketing push. You pick up all of these very known names and big fan base kind of names, people like Agilities and Surefor and Kariv.
Logics.
Logics. And then they're just throwing them all away at the end of the year. There's no coherent plan for this organization, no brand for the organization.
Was the plan to not win this year? Like, what was the plan this year?
They can't have wanted to win this year, though. You know, when you're picking up these players, like anyone who picked up these players and thought they were going to win the league is a fool, genuinely a fool. And if they sold that to the management, they're also a fool because they've set themselves up for failure at this offseason. You can't pitch a team like this and say that they're going to win. It's just nonsense. Like, whenever we looked at them,
you could have kept Kariv.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that Kariv performed.
If you're blowing up the entire thing, if you're blowing up everything but one, it's like
you don't think he would have had any type of like at least trade value, Josh?
With the amount of flex supports coming into the scene, I actually don't know whether
contenders, maybe not.
Yeah, I
maybe
don't know.
not. But
I mean, it's making a statement, that's for sure. And maybe like making a statement like this is good, where it's like, hey, we want to start on a real clean slate, and
who the hell is going to join the Toronto Defiant if they say they're going to build a championship roster?
They have to pick up like a whole whether it's a team coming out of contenders or like they have to make like the biggest names out of contenders or something.
They're the Washington Justice of last year, where Washington were like apparently making big moves on the market, but no one wanted to join them because the organization's just got a shitty reputation. And not shitty in terms of like bad staff or anything, but shitty in terms of like they have just lost for 2 seasons.
Well, I think you're scared of just kind of this roster overturn happening to you, right? I think it's not really like
or you not being able to, or the organization not being able to sign a full superstar roster, so you end up just locking 3 good players on a bad team. Like that's what I would be scared of if I'm a player and they say, hey, do you want to play for the Toronto Defiant? I'm like, hey, I'm interested if you throw buckets of money at me, but only when I see the full 6 or the full 9 or whatever.
Yeah, who else is coming?
Yeah, I'm not interested to sign when I'm your only good player.
To like, what would have hurt having Sherford on this roster? Like he is like, the biggest Overwatch player like from Canada, like the Toronto team. Like,
does he even want to play at this point?
Yeah,
I mean, he may want to be a streamer, content creator, right?
Sherford's streaming stuff has been like popping off recently. He's doing all kinds of games with every top streamer, like VR chat. He's been playing with Soda Pop and a ton, and like I'm curious to see if Sherford doesn't resign and just goes.
He seems genuinely happy doing that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Which we all love Sherford. I love Sherford.
I think he even got a mute.
He's a great guy.
I have no clue. Did you just say he got a mute?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he got a mute. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
It's like
we'll talk about it later, Josh.
Yeah, it's a weird stream of VR thing, yeah.
Yeah, I think this Toronto
technology.
I would just love to see them take a more transparent approach, kind of like how London came forward with Nuki, like have somebody who can kind of be the face of this franchise and really give you a lot of confidence that it's heading in the right direction. Because I think right now it looks like, at least from the outside of one, just like in complete like flux, right? Where you just don't know.
You have no idea.
The Titans, they have some news here. Dalton is back. Shockwave's a free agent. That's his existing contract expiring. Suna had his 21 option declined. KSA had his option declined.
That's so weird.
Shredlock, though, had his picked up. And Rolf had his pick up, and Karkar has his decline. So a little bit of a combination of everything here. I do like how they are giving some of these players another chance. Some of these players I thought looked pretty good towards the second
Shockwave.
half.
Shockwave is so good. Resign Shockwave.
Yeah, I was a little bit shocked on the Shockwave one.
I mean, I think Shockwave
is great for NT now.
Shockwave's just smart though. He signed a short-term contract and then is playing the free agency market. That's just smart from Shockwave, honestly. My question is, if you were going to sign one half of this tank line, I would have gone for KSA over Shredlock.
I think it's because they're based in America.
Visa.
Oh, visa issues.
So they just know that he's going to be playing on high ping forever.
Right. That could be that could be a tough situation. But I do think though, people were kind of talking like, did they just kind of like nuke these players like after the season? And I remember, Johnny, you were passionate about it. They've held on to a bunch. So we get to see what else they can build. Maybe they have some other players from tier 2 they want to try and try out next season. I view this as a team kind of like London. You're just trying you're trying to compete with a new roster, and we'll play it from there.
It's not quite like London though, because they've already, I don't know. They've already
got a clean slate, right?
Yeah, London's got a clean slate to sign whoever they want, and the free agency market is popping with good players right now. There are many people who in the free agency market who are better flex supports than Rolf, for example. And I love Rolf. I love his story and what he's done like over the course of the entirety of Overwatch. But there just simply are, and there's better tanks than Shredlock in there as well. I mean, I know that it would have been a horrible PR backlash for them to get rid of this entire roster, and maybe that's why they didn't do it. But I'm now concerned for them into the next year, because it's also going to be bad PR if they just take an organization that was noted for winning or, dominating at the beginning of 2019 and just kind of run it into the ground.
I could totally see them making like a PR approach for some popular players in the league to kind of turn that sentiment around, right? Like, you know, if Toronto like, oh, Observe 4, he's still Canadian, you know, we're swinging
agilities and whatnot as well. Yeah,
I could totally see them trying to make a play for somebody like a McGravy, right?
Yeah.
Like I could totally see them saying, hey, look, like, come play for us.
Vancouver would like
around.
be the new Toronto.
Yeah.
Yes, in a way. I think they could totally go that route and become new Toronto.
They actually could.
Like they have some young players from tier 2 that look like they have some promise. Bring in some old fan favorites and see how a run it course, supposedly, you know, see how it goes. But what Johnny thought it was funny that we referred to them as new Toronto.
Yeah, it's just like, what plans do you guys have for 2021? We want to be like the Defiant. That's very desirable for us. We want to be like the Toronto Defiant.
We want to be the new Toronto.
I actually think that's almost best case scenario for this team, though.
So
and also it's funny because they're both Canadian franchises.
Name value and brand value. Right,
what, Josh?
Today might as well, like, if you sign the Canadian DPS line, then have Dalton there too to flex. And have agilities for those 3, and then pick up another tank and support.
Sure, for they bring in Kariv.
Team Canada, baby.
You're kind of there, right?
Yeah.
Bring in a player like McGravy.
Absolutely.
Why not? I actually wouldn't mind that team.
Hey, no, it's not bad. I actually think it would be a pretty good addition.
Yeah, that's a team I could totally get behind and have a ton of fun watching. The Justice. This is just I'm mind blown. And I saw tweet out, I believe the GM of the Justice, that like, hey guys, don't read too much into it. We are currently in talks with like all of these players. Decay, his contract expires. He'll hit the market. You expect they are trying to do everything they can to keep him. Stitch had his option declined. Tuba is still there. So I think possibly they think that they can bring back Decay, and then Decay is kind of the replacement for Stitch. You're not going to have Decay playing the Zarya all the time. Janu had his option declined in the off-tank role. Roar is still under contract, and then both supports have their options declined.
I think, though, that this is because the players that they brought over were on weird contracts.
Yeah,
like Decay, for example, pre-tweeted, Decay has to become a free agent because he was only a temporary signing for the end of the season. So again, that makes 100% that makes total sense. And Decay, they'll be actively pursuing. But for people like Stitch and Janu as well, those guys came over as, I don't want to say like temporary substitutions, but they came over without really realizing what the hell they were getting themselves into. And now if the vision of the team is going in a very different direction, which is to build like an actual super team, like a proper top Korean team, which the Justice could do with Decay and with Janu and Stitch on the roster, then I think you want to renegotiate those contracts. You want to make them different lengths. You want to make them different pricing. You want to work out the details a little more. So that I think is what's going on here. I would be very surprised if Janu isn't brought back, and Decay and probably Stitch as well.
I think it's really easy to sell a plan now for Justice as well. Like they were like, hey, we had a good playoffs run.
Yes.
They can really sell the players on this idea of like getting a good roster. And the good thing is they're not simply like re-signing the team they had from last year. Like they're actually exploring, like making improvements to the roster, get the good boys back, and then make improvements upon that and build upon that. And I think that's really promising.
I think as well, repairing the fallout from the Corey and Stratus as well from leaving the team, because they were almost faces of the team. Everybody loved the Justice. Yeah, and one of the main reasons was because Corey and Stratus just being such big personalities, and how funny Stratus is. You see him at the Justice homestand. He's doing all kinds of things. People love those two people, but keeping now this team that made this miracle run, they definitely gained a lot of fans because of Decay as well, and just not letting them go and just holding on to them so tightly so they can just continue to build that and rebuild this reputation that Justice once had. I think that's incredibly important for them as well.
I mean, Yeah, this would be a new start for the Justice as well.
Yeah.
I don't think they've ever had a good reputation. They've just
sure,
been
but like a good, sorry, not
time,
a reputation,
basically.
but you know what I mean. Like with the players, just been like a fan-loving team. Like we love Strauss, we love Corey, and they're trying to build back up to that. Is what I mean.
I think though that this team does need to make significant moves. They almost certainly need another main tank here.
Yes,
I know the Raw's under existing contract.
Yeah.
Sign another main tank, please.
I think he'll transition to a coach kind of role.
Yeah. I mean, he already was in like an assistant coach role or something for the playoffs. Didn't they say that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to get another main tank for sure.
You need 2 new supports as well. I know that Aim God is really sick when it comes to the Ana and the Zen, and Ark's been good on Mercy, but outside of those 3 heroes, they have not shown up on anything else all year long. Like when everything else was in meta, when you had like Bat Zen, Bat Brig, when you had the Moira Lucio compositions, that kind of stuff, it was bad. It wasn't even average. It was significantly below average from Aim God and Ark. So you need other people on this roster, or you need to heavily work on Aim God's hero pool, I think, in order to bring his
Aim God
his BAP and his Moira up to that level.
Bring in 2 other supports and just bring in Aim God when they need the Zen.
Yeah, I would be perfectly happy with that as well. I mean, it depends who is also short calling for this team. Like if it's Ark, for example, then that also requires a bit of a restructuring. But my biggest fear is that Washington Justice sign a bunch of really good players, but they keep around some of the mediocre players, and you end up with a crappy team that could have been so much better. And then you're like wasting the years of people like Decay and other people.
Yeah,
like if he's, because there's no argument. If the meta was different in the playoffs, this still would have been a pretty bad team, I think. There's no way that they would have made it to third.
Right. You still would have had issues with the tank and the support line. Yeah, they still need to make tons of changes. I do want to say, though, I like how I've given Nuki props, like coming out and just kind of explaining what everything means, and just that like giving the Justice fans like the heads up, like, hey, we are actively talking to these players. Because I think this is a pretty stressful time for a lot of fans of different teams, right? Like you're a fan of Toronto and you see the entire roster go down. Like what's the I mean, I say it so nonchalantly, it's like not even that funny, but like what's the plan, right? Like where's our team going? Like what should we be looking for? Like if I was a fan, I would almost want updates like every week. Obviously they cannot tell us like, hey, what's going on with this contract, what's going on with that, but just an update on where we are. Hey, we're trying to lock down the supports this week. We have had some good conversations. This is going down, just to give people a peace of mind of like where these things are going. Because honestly, a lot of the times I think the fans don't even know like who's making the decisions for these teams. Or
well, that's what I always think about Houston. Actually, a lot of the discussion about Cool Matt becoming the GM is like, oh, he's a former player, he's going to be able to spot all this talent. I would be surprised if it's him over Junkbuck that's actually going to be building the roster for next year. That would be incredibly surprising to me. But maybe that is the case. I want to know these things, if I'm a Houston Outlaws fan, I want to know where the buck stops genuinely. Like, is Cool Matt giving the power to Junkbuck, or does the buck stop with Cool Matt if the roster sucks for next year? Like, these are the kind of things that are really important for fans to know, so that the praise and hate doesn't go in the wrong direction, and they actually have some idea of where the decisions are coming from.
Yeah, and I think with the way like there are so many free agents, and I just think like it's with how the contracts like had the +1s, where we saw a lot of people just get picked up last year, where we didn't see a ton of big movement in free agency, right? Last year. The movement in free agency last year was just signing completely new players who weren't in the league.
I mean, there was some stuff like Philly building their super team and Shanghai built a brand new team and that kind of stuff.
Yes, but some of those players just came from like Ivy came from Toronto, who Toronto just like blew it up, right? Kisu, they were able to sign in free agency. Same with Alarm. Funny Astro was on the bench for Atlanta. They got him in a trade, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't like these whole teams were just like everybody was down to 2 players and everybody was just kind of starting from scratch. I think with just the way that people got signed this year, we had some teams underperform and some players underperform, then their contracts don't get picked up. Plus the combination of the players who did get picked up, even via trade last year. If you got traded last year, most likely your contract was just picked up for the 1 year. and now your contract is expired. You have just this influx of free agency that's just. I mean, this is probably the year you'll see, like, at least out of the ones that we've done, like the most change in the league, like top to bottom.
Probably.
Because a lot of these teams,
it's going to be fun to track.
Oh,
it's going to be so fun.
A lot of these teams are basically forced to change because they don't have anybody or they have limited players anymore. And I also think it'll depend. I think you'll see clearly on what teams are prioritizing, like going for the win, so to speak, and what teams are prioritizing, just trying to compete with a nice team.
I would love to see Janu to Seoul Dynasty.
What? Why Janu out of all of the Korean off tanks?
Slime. And that's about it.
That's it. You just
Soul Titan. Soul Titan.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun. I think people love that shit.
I also think
let us know down in the comments below if you agree.
Yeah, let us know. I think you do have a lot of teams though that are in the same type of position as like a New York, where I think New York is still, after going through all of these, probably in like one of the weirdest spots. It's like,
that's the team I'm most looking forward to seeing.
Do you believe that team can contend with Shanghai bringing everybody back? Seoul Dynasty bringing mostly everybody back, probably with some additions.
Yeah.
Shock bringing mostly everybody back. Philly probably bringing most of the team back. If you're New York, what do you do? Like, do you believe that core can still contend with those level of teams?
Because if you can't beat them, then there's no point in paying for the top level players.
Yeah.
You may as well say, hey, look, we're gonna go and we're gonna just try and basically. I think what you would do is you would probably try and trade a lot of those players to teams that feel like they're one or two players away. Like, maybe a team like Paris Eternal would want to bring in like a Mono or somebody like that, right? And have him play the tank, and
Washington, they'd love a Mono as well.
Washington would love Mono. Like, teams would be knocking down your door for these types of players if you're New York. And New York then can say, hey, you know what? We're going to keep maybe one or two, and we're going to build a competitive younger roster and see how far we can push that.
There's a lot of uncertainty going on here, but I think, it's good for us to just mention as well that obviously Plat Chat Overwatch will be going more in depth about all of these teams as signings progress and as announced and stuff like that. So.
No, this is about as deep as we'll go. We'll probably say just about this deep. Yeah.
I want people to know that there's more coming. Stay tuned.
We will be here for you while all of these things go on.
Yes.
So you'll be able to come back to this channel only if you subscribe. Only if you like this video.
Yeah.
And if you hit the bell, you will probably have a better chance of knowing the video is live than Sideshow, considering.
And you can tweet about it before everybody else does, and then you can gain the clout on Twitter.
This week.
Huh?
Bren's player of the week.
You got to do your job and announce
player of the week.
Yeah.
Bren's player of the week.
No, we got a clip,
presented by,
of course, by T-Mobile.
T-Mobile. Was that a good Bren impression? He shouts a lot. Loud is funny after all.
Oh.
Well,
do we have the clip, Kurt? Roll the clip.
Ooh. Hello. It's Bren's player of the week. Getting very uncomfortable. Presented by T-Mobile.
It's Bren's player of the week, presented by T-Mobile. And who does it go to this week, Jaws?
It goes to none other than Beth.
Beth is the player of the week.
For getting Josh up.
Because we were supposed to film this episode starting at 12. That tweet was sent at 12:17 as me, Jaws, Kurt, and Reinforce sat here and we were wondering, where is Sideshow? Sideshow asked to film this early. Where is Sideshow? We can't sub in Wyatt because it's Overwatch and he doesn't know much about it. But if it was Valorant, we could have.
Got you.
So what did we need to do? We needed to send out Bren.
Oh, you just forget
No,
to
we didn't
turn
need
that
to
off.
send Bren out. We needed to send out the bat signal. We needed to break the emergency glass
signal.
We needed to reach out to Beth. One, to make sure Josh was awake. He was not awake. Two,
I wasn't awake.
to get him from being unawake to that chair, which he was able to do in record time.
I really was. I was there in like 2 seconds flat.
Did
Once
she
she
put a
tweeted
Pringle
me
under your
and said,
nose to wake
I
you
got
up?
you. You were basically here.
Yeah, she's incredibly efficient. I have no excuses either. I didn't stay up late last night. I went to bed at like 1 a.m.
I wonder
just
if
slept
I wonder if you had a
11
Pringles
Sleeping is good,
coma.
dude.
Was it
I
a
don't blame
Pringles
you.
coma?
It wasn't a Pringles coma. I just enjoy sleeping. I set my alarm for like 9 a.m. because
Hey,
I
so do I.
thought, oh no, I think I set my alarm for like 10 a.m. and then I just slept through it. I was like, I don't know. My brain just said, nah, nothing important going on today. Plat Chat can wait.
Sleeping is nice. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I blame the fact that this is recorded on a different day because we're waiting for the free agency article. And my
So
brain hadn't processed the fact that it was
so the
Plat Chat
fact
day.
that you literally so this is how it goes in the Plat Chat Discord. We're like, hey, should we record this later in the day? Josh goes, no, I have a sponsored stream, can't do it. Can you guys do 12? I say, yeah, I can do 12. Bren says, yes, I can do 12. Then Bren backs out. That's how we ended with Jaws.
Exactly.
then-
Why isn't Bren getting any of this flack?
I don't know. Bren has maintained that he is the only one who can edit this YouTube video he's producing, and it is the most important thing on the planet to do at this moment currently.
Yeah.
So
It's
that's why
really good
Bren's not
though.
here.
So you should definitely follow Plat Chat Valorant on YouTube.
True.
And stay tuned and hit the bell, and you'll be notified.
Only if
when
you
it comes
like
out.
Valorant, because we need loads of likes. But
No, even if you don't like Valorant, go there.
you can
I
go
will
there and
make
like
you
it.
like Valorant.
That's
We'll
true.
turn you into a fan of Valorant.
So we got Jaws in, and then Johnny goes
Thank you.
this morning.
Having
Wait,
me on.
we're doing it at 12?
Yeah.
I thought we said later after
Yeah.
Josh said it. And then Josh literally said, let's make sure Kurt's available. Kurt said, yeah, I'm good for 12. And then he doesn't show up. Kurt, get on the mic, Kurt. Get on the mic.
What do you want me to
Let him know.
say?
Huh?
What do you want me to say?
Let him know that your time is valuable, Kurt.
All right. Are we almost done?
Yeah, we're done.
Yeah. We're
Josh,
pretty
thank
done.
you for filling in for Bren. Would you like to say anything to your fan out there?
Thank you, Matt, for joining. And yeah, thanks for cheering me on, Matt. Thank you very much.
Thanks
Is
for
Matt your
cheering-
only fan?
Yes.
Thanks for cheering me on.
Thanks,
Wow.
I'm a Jaws stan. When he's streaming, I'm there in the chat,
No, he's
typing in
not.
all caps, cheering him on.
Nope.
Go Jaws, go.
Mitch is the only
Go,
one.
Jaws, go.
Mitch is the only one.
That's what I'm doing in the chat. What's wrong with you, Johnny?
I just love this moment. I embrace this moment. I will treasure it forever.
All right. Well, that was the episode on free agency. Come back and watch more. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Press like, press
We're
bell.
Please do. Please.
I like just leaving it recording just to let you guys marinate a little bit.
What?
Yeah, just let the moment marinate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Alright.
I like
We're-
kind of staring at Jaws. It's weird.
Kind of like this.
Well, you won't have to send me for much longer. I gotta make food. I've not had food today.
Okay,
Still,
goodbye.
we're still recording.
Oh.
Yeah, you're stuck here now, Joel.
My
Wow,
shopping
that's kinda
came
weird,
as
yeah.
the
Kurt can literally
episode was
control
going.
our lives. We literally can't leave this desk without Kurt shutting
Isn't
it
this
down.
cringe?